This video is sponsored by Squarespace. There's a quote in Ratatouille that barely sounds important, feels like a simple throwaway remark, but it's been gnawing at my brain all morning. Colette, when introducing Alfredo to the rest of the team, describes them as pirates.
We are artists, pirates. Or the cooks, are we?
She goes through the chefs one by one, explaining how they are all outlaws and criminals and cheaters.
Lalo then went away from home at 12. Got hired by circus people as an applebird. Horst has done time. Larousse ran gun for the resistance.
Which resistance?
He won't say. Don't ever play cards with Pompidou. He's been banned from Las Vegas and Monte Carlo.
Ruffians and misfits, and this makes them more than just cooks. This is something noble and greater. I find this quite interesting for a lot of reasons that will become apparent across this video. Ratatouille is, of course, a film about a rat who dreams of becoming a world-famous chef and yet never does get to become a world-famous chef. The second people find out the restaurant Gusto has a rat in the kitchen, the public complain and cause it to be shut down. Remi does end the film with his own restaurant called La Ratatouille. However, he again has to pretend that he is not the chef, again is given no renown for his work. Only Alfredo, Colette and Anton know who the real chef is. And for a film that's core message is the idea anyone can cook, that a great artist can arise from anywhere, regardless of their background or humble beginnings, it seems strange then that such a story should end with our great artists not receiving credit, not being known. Nobody knew, even coming to the opinion that a great artist can arise from anywhere other than Anton Ego himself. Anyone perhaps can cook, but the public at large are not ready for anyone. The world of this film is an unfair one, just as our own world often is, and the point for Remi here is that he learns to let go of his need for fame and reputation. His idol Gusto died of a broken heart when the fierce critic Anton Ego stripped it of one of its Michelin stars. It is probably unfair Gusto was criticised so heavily, but should it have mattered so much? Should cooking be about the acclaim and the validation? The point of Remi causing the initial restaurant to be shut down, and then having to cook in a different place in secrecy, is that he does it for the sake of the art itself, the food itself, the creative process in its purest sense, rather than for personal reputation. Curiously, Remi has the exact same arc Anton has in that sense, who himself sacrifices his reputation in order to praise and defend Remi as a chef for the love of his food. Doing so costs Anton his career.
Ego lost his job and his credibility.
And yet he is happier for it, because he instead invests in Remi to open a new restaurant that he can eat at as much as he likes. This film tells us, in direct contrast to Skinner using Gusto's image to feed a capitalist empire of frozen food and microwavable meals, that food isn't about what's to be gained. It's not about the monetization or the wealth or the fame or any of the things we're increasingly pushed to see as the purpose behind all hobbies and art and passion. That they have to lead somewhere higher, have to have some concrete gain out of them. Remi's dad only cares about Remi's gifted sense of smell when he realises it can be utilised as a tool, employed to check all food for rat poison before eating it. Remi's gift is seen as a commodity to utilise. Instead, no, the joy of cooking and eating and getting to bring people together, getting to remind them of home. Passions and talents are about the joy of getting to explore them. This film in that sense is about letting go of ego, chasing a dream for the enthusiasm rather than the ambition. I think this is all pretty well known about Ratatouille, and it's a good message, and pedantically picking holes in it would be beside the point. However, there is still a very strange and contradictory film under the surface here. A lot of its ideas do seem to clash with each other and don't really add up with much consistency, and the closer you look at Ratatouille, the weirder and weirder it starts to seem. Which may sound like a criticism on my part. When I asked people what they thought of this film, I did get a couple of negative criticisms pointing to the weird messaging, and today I want to explore that in parts, but not as a criticism, because I think what's so very strange about Ratatouille, and it is strange, is also exactly what makes it most beautiful. It's also a film that's changed my opinion about something quite big to do with Pixar as a whole. I am, of course, continuing my plan to watch and discuss every single Pixar film, as well as ranking a lot of them as I think best fits. Ratatouille is one of the ones I'd never seen before. I've heard a lot of positive things about it, but I'd never seen it, and now it might be one of my favourites. So let's kick this off, as ever, with a really cool train. So again, we're going to have to start this by sounding very critical about the movie, but bear with me. One of the repeated, very kids movie messages in this film is that stealing is wrong. Remi is consistently critical of his family for stealing food.
Noble. We're thieves, Dad.
We get an imaginary vision of Gusteau in this movie to function as a representation for Remi's conscience, a representation that chides him for almost stealing even a tiny bit of bread when he hasn't eaten in days.
A cook makes, a thief takes. You are not the thief.
I'm hungry! I don't know where I am, and I don't know when I'll find food again.
Then when he makes an omelette for himself and Alfredo, Remi is denied the chance to eat it, not directly because he stole herbs from the neighbour's garden, but it feels like that's the moral here.
Look, it's delicious, but don't steal.
Remi suffers on to the point of starvation without eating until Alfredo thinks to give him some cheese. Cheese Remi isn't allowed to take himself, we should stress. Cheese he is supposed to rely on the benevolence of this greater human to bless him with. And when Remi is pressured to steal food from the restaurant for his hungry colony, he feels incredibly uneasy about it, only truly giving in for a moment of spite to get back at Alfredo. And then, on a lot of occasions the characters do steal in this film, the narrative is clear to punish them for it. All of it leading to the ultimate conclusion when Remi provides food from his own restaurant to his colony. Not stealing it for them now, but cooking them meals in a restaurant. They are customers, effectively. He has reformed their pilfering ways. Like Remi was to Alfredo, they shouldn't steal. They should rely on the charity of someone else because stealing is wrong. Even when you're starving and you haven't eaten in days and you don't know when you'll next see food, even then, don't steal. You should just instead vaguely trust that food will come to you.
Food will come, Remi. Food always comes to those who love to cook.
You know, should we take issue with this? The message that stealing is wrong is not a bad message for a kid's movie, but they didn't need to go to these extreme specifics about it. They could have just generally said stealing is wrong and avoided the example altogether of, but what about when you're starving? Instead, no, they chose to go the extra mile to specify clearly, yes, even then, you should never steal. You should wait for food to somehow come to you. When Remi is reunited with his dad after several days alone in Paris, his father expects Remi to have a newfound appreciation and understanding for why their colony steals. I mean, we say steal. It's leftover food that's been chucked out, so it's not quite stealing. But he imagines Remi having experienced the hardships of life totally on his own, struggling to survive from one meal to next, will now finally understand his dad's attitude.
It's tough out there in the big world all alone, isn't it? Nothing like a cold splash of reality to make you...
Except, no. Remi found a job. Remi went out into the wide world, he pulled up his socks and found himself a job. Just walked into a career as a highly sophisticated chef. Sure, he has to hide himself to keep the job, and it's not technically his job, it's Alfredo Linguini's, who also only got the job because his mother used to work there and happened to need a garbage boy, and then he happens to accidentally make a really, really nice soup. So that's a lot of coincidences, but forget all that extreme luck for a second. You don't need to steal, just go out there and find a job. Sure, they're not easy to find, but if you're determined and you give the manager a firm handshake, everything will work out fine. Food will always come to those who love to cook. Wealth will always come to those who work hard. Does it, though? Again, Remi and Alfredo are both extraordinarily lucky. In fact, despite all Remi's clear talent, Alfredo was still going to lose his job until he happened to discover he was actually the son of Gusteau, and therefore happened to inherit the restaurant and become the boss right before he was fired. That's a lot of luck, but suddenly the film feels incredibly elitist in that sense. It tells us stealing in all situations is wrong, and that there is an alternative that looks so extraordinarily unlikely that I'm not sure what the rest of the colony would be expected to do. None of them have the talents to land their own jobs as Michelin star chefs. And similarly, it does very little to engage with why these rats might feel forced to steal in the first place, the systemic and environmental conditions that cause it. They are supposed to play by the rules of a game that is deliberately stacked against them, and just hope by sheer luck that they happen to be one of the rare few that actually win. And even then, if you do win, do very little to change the system itself. The world remains exactly the same by the end here. Remi is just lucky enough to have good income and to be able to feed his family with it, which is also thanks to the extraordinary luck that someone rich happened to invest in him and start a small business, someone who would never have done that had Remi not already been in a lucky position to have served him a meal that happens to blow his mind and completely shatter his philosophy on life and cooking. The system works great for those who benefit, but if you don't benefit, it's your own fault for not building something better. That almost feels like the message here, for not spending just a little bit of time to build a platform that can kickstart your success. That there are even the perfect tools available to help you do so.
Combine one
Create
with
a
an
platform.
and something new was created.
Yep, this video is sponsored by Squarespace. If you're cooking up something special in the website or the online business world, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform you need, complete with all the ingredients. Intuitive website designer, linking with business email, loads of integrations, securing your own unique domain, built-in SEO tools, personalized marketing campaigns, analytics, invoices, booking schedules, contact forms, donations, and a load more. Like I said, all in one. I've been building my own website on Squarespace. This footage is all me building it from scratch without the need of any tutorials. Just adds elements, drag and resize everything on this grid system, change the colours, add pictures, build a nice contact form if you fancy, build a shop page so I can sell such things as my new poetry book. Yeah, thanks to Squarespace, this website is now live. The shop page is now live. All set up with very little hassle at all. So, if you want the best domain name at an all-inclusive price, if you want integrated SEO tools, if you want a giant scrolling list of all the things Squarespace have to offer, then click the link in the description or the pinned comment for a free trial to Squarespace. And if it suits you nicely, then use the code MyLittleThoughtTree to get 10% off purchasing your first domain or website, just like I did. Squarespace. Yeah. So the thing about everything I've said so far is that it strikes me less as the message of the film than of Remi's mindset. I don't agree with his comments, essentially. His character is perhaps very elitist, but probably not the film itself. Remi is someone born into a rat colony who doesn't want to be a rat, doesn't want to be a thief or eat garbage or all sorts of things he seems to associate as inferior. He wants to be like a human.
There's something about them. They don't just survive, they discover, they create.
At the beginning of the film, he starts refusing to eat garbage food outright because he wants to be better.
If you are what you eat, then I only want to eat the good stuff.
And he argues if they absolutely have to steal, why don't they steal fresh food from the kitchens?
If we're going to be thieves, why not steal the good stuff in the kitchen, where nothing is poison?
And on the one hand, he's got a point. Fresh food would be nicer, but equally, these rats all view food simply as fuel.
Food is fuel. You get picky about what you put in the tank, your engine is gonna die.
So if they're not that fussed about the taste, why should they risk their lives stealing foods that's way more dangerous to try and steal? This lady goes mental with a shotgun when she catches them in the kitchen. Remi and Emile both almost die. The whole colony is forced to move. Remi gets separated. Is that kind of risk worth it on a regular basis? Also, again, for all Remi looks down on stealing, the colony is barely stealing when they are taking leftover food that's already been thrown away that nobody wants. If anyone is more the thief, it's definitely Remi in this example, because he steals strawberry and cheese directly from the old lady's kitchen. He steals saffron and all sorts of other herbs. He even steals her entire cookbook. He steals herbs from the neighbour's garden, and as for stealing from the restaurant itself, he at first passionately insists on doing that. His brother Emile was absolutely fine eating any old rubbish out the bin, but Remi refuses point blank to let him.
No! Spit that out right now!
Insists he will steal from the restaurant because Emile, his brother, must eat something more refined, more sophisticated.
No brother of mine eats rejectamenta in my town.
So he prefers stealing for the sake of fine food than barely stealing but for the sake of leftover food. is this even about stealing anymore? The thing to remember about this imaginary figure of Gusto is that he's not the real Gusto, and should not therefore be taken as a moral voice for the audience. It is Remi's own conscience here, and own thoughts just expressed via this other character. Imaginary Gusto repeatedly goes to great lengths to stress that he is just Remi. He knows only what Remi knows. He is nothing but part of his brain.
I have a son?
How could you not know this?
I am a figment of your imagination. You did not know, how could I?
So Gusto scolding Remi reflects Remi's own feelings about himself, and if it's not directly about stealing, we have to pay attention to which specific examples of stealing Remi takes issue with. Stealing garbage to feed a colony is an issue. Stealing cheese and saffron and an entire cookbook to develop a better culinary palate, that's a-okay. Stealing bread when you're hungry, crucially not binned or rubbish bread in this situation, but fresh quality bread. Stealing that when you're hungry is an issue. Stealing fresh restaurant food to develop your brother's culinary palate, though, that's good. But when Emil tells his friends about this and then there's other rats turning up because they're hungry, now Remi starts to become uneasy about it. The point then, I think, is the motivation behind it. For Remi, stealing in aid of a culinary palate is a noble purpose. It is going towards something greater, developing his ability to cook and to understand food. A thief takes, but a cook perhaps also takes, however, does so in order to make something new, to bring something into the world. For Remi, art is such a pure and divine thing that it is a calling to come before all other concerns. Whereas stealing so that people can survive, so that your family can live and grow, that's what Remi's dad describes as noble, but not Remi himself.
You've helped a noble cause.
Noble? We're thieves, Dad.
Remi decided he wasn't going to eat garbage because you are what you eat, and Remi doesn't just want to eat when he's hungry because that's not appreciating the sensation of food. You're in a mindset there where you're eating just for sustenance rather than for sophistication. An attitude pretty similar to Anton Ego's.
And you're thin for someone who likes food.
You look thin. Why is that? A shortage of food or a surplus of snobbery?
I don't like food. I love it. If I don't love it, I don't swallow.
So, really, Remi is a snob. One who looks down on his humble origins in an effort to identify himself with something more human and more sophisticated. It really bothers him that Emil doesn't appreciate food the way he does, which is what makes the scene of Remi cooking for his family at the restaurant feel less wholesome than it otherwise would. Because then it suddenly feels less like feeding them and helping them to survive than teaching them to be more like Remi, to be more human. His rat colony have to be taught class, which feels like it goes against the big climax of this film. Remi serving Anton Ego a dish of ratatouille, a peasant's dish, it is described as, that reminds Anton of his childhood, of his home, of the more humble beginnings he has similarly tried to distance himself from. If the point is not to forget our past, not to be ashamed of it, that the power of cooking to relink you to your roots is something beautiful, then what is so wrong with the rats simply treating food like fuel? They are Remi's past, why do they have to change to be acceptable? I kept waiting for the film to celebrate the fact food isn't just about the art or even the sensations and the memories it can evoke, it is about bringing people together as well. But perhaps we should first ask, has Remi changed as a person? Or as a rat? Does he end the film with the same mindset he began? And if not, what is the message here? To be fair to Remi, if he wanted to become a chef, what choice did he have in the beginning other than to steal? I mean, he has an extraordinary gift for smell and taste and wonderful creativity, but that alone doesn't make him a chef. He still needs to learn about all the different tastes and smells. He needs to try all the herbs and spices, see how they affect the taste of other foods when combined. He's still to experience an endless amount of ingredients, and he also needs to learn from someone. Without Gusto's cookbook that even before he steals it, Remi was breaking in to read it pretty much every night. Without any of that, his extraordinary talents would never have hit their potential. You know, this example's going to be stupid, but my abiding feeling coming away from this film is that I really, really wanted to eat cheese. And like, not just eat cheese, but really appreciate it. As much as the bad rep I think the UK seems to get for our cooking, entirely undeserved by the way, I think we make some of the best cheeses in the world. We're at least in that conversation, and yet I know absolutely nothing about half of the cheese we got here. I've got no idea, because good cheese is really expensive. Even cheap cheese costs a lot. There's literally a cheese shop quite near to where I live, and I love looking in the windows, but I've never once gone in it, and I probably never will. And you know, I could, if I was determined to save some money away, I could probably afford to buy a nice block of cheese every now and then, but to buy all the other 1 billion ingredients and fresh produce a chef would need to regularly be tasting and experimenting with. And let's say I didn't have any money at all, and I was a rat, and I'm not going to be given an apprenticeship in cooking or anything like that. I'm not going to be able to take an education in it. What then? There isn't anything in place to help Remi learn anything about cooking. If he wasn't therefore going to steal all those foods and steal the cookbook and all of that stuff, how else was he going to learn? I doubt Remi could knock on the old lady's door and ask politely for a bit of cheese and strawberry and some saffron without her shooting his head off. And even if he somehow earned money to then go to a market and buy food, I doubt anyone is going to let him buy anything. For someone of Remi's social status, let's call it, he is not supposed to become a chef. He is not supposed to do anything other than skulk in the sewers and pick at leftover food. Those are the rules of the game here. The only way Remi is going to elevate himself higher is if he breaks the rules, if he steals not just to satisfy hunger, but to learn and grow and become someone who can make something wonderful out of all of this learning. But that, of course, is not supposed to be allowed. Anton, I think, makes a very similar point to Alfredo.
You are new to this game, and you've been playing without an opponent, which is, as you may have guessed, against the rules.
Is it snobbish and elitist for Remi to just not accept the rules he's been given? He may have an unfair opinion of his colony, but is he wrong to want more? I think again of Colette describing the team as pirates who could be bloodthirsty, awful people, but were also often once sailors treated in such appalling slave-like conditions that they decided they wouldn't take it anymore. They would mutiny, or they would take their own ship, and they would live freely without the unfair rules of an unfair game imposed on them without choice. Remi refusing to just accept the cards he's been dealt, even if he has to cheat a little to get an even chance at something more, I think fits to this idea quite nicely. And if we think about the other chefs again, Lalo ran away presumably because he wanted more from life than the home he was born into offered him. We don't know which resistance LaRousse worked with, but the resistance is nonetheless an example of not accepting the rules you've been given because you think them unfair. This of course doesn't necessarily make any of their actions good. It's quite possible Horst murdered someone, but we don't know that, and it doesn't undermine the idea they represent for Colette. Colette herself, who tells us quite clearly in this film that because she's a woman it has been near impossible to carve out her own space in the kitchen, and that head chef Skinner consistently wants her to fail, consistently gives her harder jobs, such as responsibility for Alfredo, in the hopes she will fail. She too is not supposed to succeed.
Our cuisine is an antiquated hierarchy built upon rules written by stupid old men. How many women do you see in this kitchen? Rules designed to make it impossible for women to enter this world. But still I'm here, because I am the toughest cook in this kitchen.
People who were dealt an unfair hand in life but were bold enough to challenge it. Pompidou being banned from Las Vegas and Monte Carlo is perhaps an even better metaphor for this, because the man didn't cheat. Counting cards is technically not wrong at all. However, casinos don't like someone winning too much from them. The house is supposed to win. That's the rule of the game they've made, and when Pompidou, through his own skill, is able to challenge that, they ban him.
Against the rules.
And I think we can take the metaphor of food too literally in this film. There is nothing wrong with just treating food like fuel. However, Remi's refusal to eat garbage at all, his criticism of his dad, his insistence to develop Emil's palate, I don't think we should take that as a direct point about food, that Emil and his dad are both being too common for Remi's liking, that they need a more classy, sophisticated palate. I don't think we should necessarily take it in that way. I think we should take it as a metaphor for art, the power of living. I think it's Remi saying he doesn't just want to survive in this world, which to me is what the food is fuel philosophy symbolises in this movie. Remi instead wants to truly live. The reason his dad presses so much about eating garbage isn't because that's his taste, or he's too lowly to have learned anything better, or that he prefers garbage. It's just that this is all he's been able to manage. It's been that or die. Poverty has put such an immediate stress on him that no other options have been available. Remi's fight for better food, and the end point where he can now cook for his colony, isn't a point about reforming their thieving ways or teaching them class. It's that they deserve to not just be surviving. They deserve nice things too. Everybody does. That rats can live happy, fulfilling lives without it, but it should still be something available to them, rather than something that seems totally unobtainable. And the world of this movie doesn't make that easy, or fair, and Remi isn't able to change the rules of the game. We're supposed to see how extraordinarily lucky he was, and how rigged the system was, and how he did have to steal along the way. However, we're also supposed to see what food should mean to everyone, not just something to stave off hunger for another day, to keep you just about surviving. People, no matter who they are, should be able to feel they are more than just simply surviving, whether that's literally about food or as a metaphor, something that brings colour into the world and brings people together. And crucially, we should add something safer. There is a common danger that the garbage food might be poisoned. Remi's restaurant is now able to provide consistently safe and healthy food where there isn't a risk of death. And I asked how Remi has changed. Well, Anton Ego stops treating food like a thing of rigid perfection, where you only eat total excellence and turn your nose up at anything even remotely lesser. Anton being kind of on the other extreme to food is fuel and nothing else. I think that's his change, and I think that's Remi's change too. I mean, how Remi affects Anton in the first place is reminding him of home and reminding him of his roots, and I think that's kind of what's been going on for Remi as well. I mean, we shouldn't forget his entire colony helps him to cook the Ratatouille in the climax together. They are there to celebrate the success afterwards, and that sitting in his restaurant is a chance not just to eat, not just to quickly shovel in food before someone sees you and you have to flee, nor is it to sophisticatedly talk about developing palates and all of the artistic sides of cooking. We don't see either of those things in the interaction we have here. Instead, we just see people sitting and talking and enjoying company as a family, telling stories, having a few drinks, having some food. That's what it's about here. Not just fuel, not just over-intellectualization and validation and renown, but for food to be inexorably tied to ideas of home and warmth and care. Remi wanted to become a world-famous chef because he was unhappy as a rat. He wanted to be human and had been distancing himself from his past, but in its outcome he is distancing himself no longer, in my opinion. He brings the two sides together. He is now effectively a rat and a human, a pirate and a cook. I love this movie so much, not least because it makes me really want to try expensive cheeses. But even just in that, it reminds me how even the ordinary things I take for granted every day, just eating, how much there is to still be curious about even there, how much of an adventure even just simple aspects of food can be, how much stuff I've never even tried and barely even know what it is. What I love most about this movie though is how unmoving it is. It doesn't come with the big, hard-hitting Pixar moments that make you tear up, and I've often seen it as a bad thing. It's something I marked down A Bug's Life and even The Incredibles for lacking something in them that hits me really hard. But this film is way more stirring at heart without anything like that. It doesn't make me tear up. There isn't any gut punch, but it does inspire me. It does excite me and energize me in a way the other films tend not to. Ratatouille perhaps fittingly takes a more subtle and delicate approach to its art, and that creates a much more effective balance in my opinion. I don't think I was even once close to tearing up, but I was beaming non-stop throughout this movie because it's, for want of a better word, it makes me want to live. And yet, this is still a confusing, almost contradictory film. A story about the struggle to not just survive, but truly make something out of a world that's very system is designed to keep people like Remi down. Despite exploring that beautifully, it remains strangely reticent to criticize that system at all directly. And I think that's probably part of why this video itself ended up being so long and meandering. Ratatouille doesn't make that point succinctly enough, and therefore I struggled to as well. And yet, as I say, the passion it expresses for art, for passion itself, leaves me really energized. I I love that it has a bit of fun with the comic shtick of Skinner losing his mind about a rat in the kitchen, but ultimately doesn't make that the core. I feel like once upon a time there was a first draft where he was the main villain, but I'm glad he's not at all. It's not the funniest Pixar movie, but it's still quite funny. Very unique, very fresh, incredibly vibrant, incredibly immersive actually. Probably the most so of the films I've been rewatching so far. You really get a strong sense of the kitchen and of cooking. This is Pixar at its best in my opinion. It's a 10 out of 10 movie, regardless of any criticism I might levy. And where will I rank it on my board? I think I'm going to place it first. I've only seen it once, but it really leaves me smiling. I think the world can often function to beat the passion out of us, but that's always what makes it doubly special when you get to see such a celebration of it. Perhaps then I should finish this video by mentioning my poetry book for anyone interested. What I said in the Squarespace sponsor segment was very genuine. I have made my website mltt.co.uk and you can go there right now to buy a collection of my poems, each with a beautiful illustration encased in a book that I'm really proud of. Links down below for that. I'd love to know what you all think of it, but otherwise, let me know what you think of Ratatouille. Where would you rank it? Comment your thoughts, good or bad, like the video if you liked it, subscribe, maybe even support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee, but otherwise, hopefully see you next time. And as ever, a special thank you goes to Flying Spider, Luke Gore, Michael Gallagher, Emery, Faithy, TQM, Kinesthetic, Chad Bramwell and Joshua C. Follier. Thank you.